Let's imagine for a second that our employees or the audiences we support are having a hard time doing what they're supposed to do. So there's a performance problem, it's affecting the business, we know that we need to help solve it, and then we realize that there's no training to help people do that thing better. Is this a problem? In this video, we're going to talk about why it may or may not be. So I work with a lot of new instructional designers in my bootcamp and just in different online communities. And when we talk about what's causing a performance problem, a very common response is a lack of training. Now, this may or may not be true, right? Like there may be a problem that training could help solve, but making that jump could have some deeper implications for our industry. For example, we're going to dive into this, but a lot of times stakeholders, not even instructional designers, will see a performance problem and will say, we need some training to help fix this. Because naturally, there's a lack of training, here's a problem. If we had training, this whole problem would be solved. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So we need to be careful with the language we're using around what's causing performance problems. There are a few different things that can cause them, and we will dive into them. So again, lack of training, not necessarily a problem, but it could be. So, what is causing the performance problem, right? We see this a lot. Oh, there's no training on that topic, so the lack of training is the cause. Not the case. These are the different possible causes for human performance problems. Maybe there's a lack of knowledge, or maybe there's a lack of skill. If it's one of these two problems, we possibly could help solve it with training. Right? If people don't know what they need to know, or if people don't know how to do what they need to do, then clearly training could help fix that situation. However, and this is where we get into some difficulties, a lot of the problems that we're designing training for now are environmental problems. So maybe our employees have inefficient tools, or maybe there are physical barriers that are stopping them from doing what they need to do. Maybe they're getting rewarded for doing the wrong thing or punished for doing the right thing, or maybe they just don't have the resources they need to get the job done. So I'll give you an example of each of these right after this, but you can see how you can throw all of the training in the world at these situations, but if people are getting rewarded for doing the wrong thing, they're probably going to keep doing that wrong thing. And that holds for all of those different types. And then the other one that's often mentioned is a motivational problem. So people know what to do, they know how to do it, they just aren't motivated to do it. And Kathy Moore talks a bit about this in Map It, and we've talked about this in some other videos on action mapping, but motivational problems are usually a combination of the other ones. So maybe they don't want to do the right thing because they don't feel confident that they can, because they haven't gotten the opportunities to practice doing the right thing. It also may be an environmental issue, right? I know what I need to do, I know how to do it, but I'm not motivated to do it because there's nothing in it for me, right? There's not an appropriate reward in place. And we can go on and on about that, but the main ones we're going to explore are environmental issues. Like, what are the things that training definitely cannot help solve? And I also will note, there usually is a degree of each of these things in play, right? It's rarely like purely a lack of knowledge. There's probably a lack of skill involved, and there's probably some kind of environmental issues at play too. And maybe even, managers need to get trained to better support employees to perform a given task. So usually there are multiple people who could benefit from closing those knowledge and skill gaps as well. So it never is super, super simple, but we don't really want to generalize what's causing a performance problem by just a lack of training. So let's look at some of these environmental issues. So first up, inefficient tools. Let's imagine the cashiers, they're ringing up groceries way too slowly. We need to train them on how to be more efficient, right? So you can see that like logical jump happening. The cashiers, the groceries are not getting rung up fast enough. It's too slow, and we don't have training for that. So clearly we need training for that because the lack of training is causing the problem. You see how that thought process can lead us to ignore the fact that maybe the scanners are out of date and unreliable, right? So if we're trying to scan the grocery items and it takes us like 5 tries to ring it up once, it seems like we would get a lot better return on investment by replacing that tech versus giving some training to the employees who are like, yeah, we know exactly what to do. We're trying our best, but we just have some inefficient tools. And these are the kind of things that needs assessments would reveal to you, and speaking to the audience that you support about what their actual challenges are. So physical barriers. This is another, perhaps not as common one, but this is definitely part of what causes performance problems. Here's the example. Our customers are complaining about not being able to hear our staff. We need to train our staff on how to speak more clearly, right? So imagine we're in a call center. The customers keep saying, yeah, we're having a hard time understanding the representatives. So here we are, we're in power. We need to train our staff. They need to speak more clearly, and all of this will be solved, right? Wrong. There are some really loud air conditioning units in the building that are just like affecting the calls, and the workspace is really echoey. Maybe there isn't anything that absorbs sound. So if 5 people are taking calls in the same room, it's just getting picked up on every other line. So clearly, if we were to design the environment a little bit better, maybe make that AC a little bit lower, or have some, even some technology that like had like a higher noise gate and canceled out those background noises, that would go much further than just teaching the employees how to articulate themselves better. All right, flawed reward systems. I don't have any hard data on this, but I'd imagine this is probably one of the most common environmental issues where people are getting rewarded for doing the wrong thing or punished for doing the right thing. So imagine, we're getting overrun with calls from customers who are unhappy with their new subscription program. We need to train our salespeople how to better identify customer needs, right? Because if salespeople knew how to better identify those needs, then they wouldn't be selling these people these subscription services that they don't need. However, the salespeople are just getting massive incentives for enrolling new customers in this subscription service. So if I'm a salesperson, I might know full well, maybe the customer doesn't need this. Then maybe they'll be calling back complaining about it and canceling it down the line. But every new person I get enrolled in this, if I'm making $1,000 or something like that, or even $50, if people are getting monetary rewards for doing that wrong thing, they might know full well how to identify the customer needs. They're just choosing not to because they want to put more money in their pockets. And finally, lack of resources. And I say finally, but this isn't an exhaustive list. There are so many different types of environmental problems. These are just some common ones. So this is the famous example. You might have heard me say this one before, but why are the flight attendants pouring champagne in a regular plastic cup? We need to train them on which glasses to use for which drink. But the problem is there are no champagne flutes on the flight. We don't even have that resource available to us, so we can't give you the right cup for the right drink. So then that brings us to the knowledge and skill gaps. You've heard me say it before. I'll say it again. These are the problems that training solves. Training solves a gap in knowledge and skill, and this is what we want to make sure that we are designing for. So the salespeople don't know the product features, and they don't know how to overcome sales objectives. We need to train them. Well, in this case, yeah, training actually may help. So if they don't know the product features, that's a knowledge gap, right? And if they need to memorize them, right? If we need to be like face to face with a customer, just rattling off these features or being able to pair them to their needs, then we probably need to hold them up here. So we will want to train them like some rote memorization training to make sure that they can remember this so that when they're on the job, they can just cite it off like they need to. On the other hand, if there isn't much of a social cost to using like job aids or performance support, maybe I can just have a resource where I can just look up this product details on the fly. Maybe while I'm on the phone, I can just kind of figure out what I need as I need it. And in that case, you don't really need training. You just need resources that people can use, that employees can use when they need them. And then finally, they don't know how to overcome sales objectives. Perfect opportunity, sales objections. That should be sales objections. So people are like, oh yeah, do I really need that? Oh yeah, I think I found one that's cheaper. If we designed practice activities where people could practice overcoming those objections over and over and over, that's going to make them better. That's a case where training may actually be a good fit. And if you're interested in this, action mapping is a great thing to learn about. I actually have this here on the next steps page. So if you're new to this, or you want to explore, what kind of problems can instructional design solve, what work can I do up front to make sure that my design and development work is actually making a difference, check out the 5 types of instructional design analysis video that I did last week. The one that you'll be most interested in is needs assessment. And then also action mapping. This is like a streamlined approach to training that creates results, which is, training that's necessary essentially. This is by Kathy Moore. You may have heard of her very popular book, Map It. That's what I suggest to all new instructional designers. But we also have a growing action mapping playlist where we have some live events with Kathy Moore herself. And I have like a pretty intensive overview, I would say, of the action mapping process. So check out those 2 resources if you want to learn more about when training is necessary and how to design training when it's needed. And then finally, if this did help or you are enjoying the content, please just give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.